The keys to my new car were still warm in my hand when my brother called to tell me I was being selfish. Not congratulations, you finally did it. Not I'm proud of you. Just, you're being selfish, and mom is crying. I'd saved for 3 years for that car. 3 years of picking up weekend shifts at the hospital, eating sad desk lunches, skipping every vacation my coworkers took to Cancun and Nashville, and wherever else people go when they actually have money to spend. I drove a 2009 Honda Civic with a cracked dashboard and a passenger window that only rolled down halfway, and I never once complained about it because I had a plan. The plan was, save, be smart, don't let anyone talk you out of it. The car was a 2023 Toyota Camry in midnight black. Nothing flashy. I test drove it on a Tuesday morning and sat in the parking lot afterward and cried a little, which is embarrassing to admit, but it felt like proof that the plan had worked, that I had worked. My brother's call came 4 hours later. He told me our sister Reagan and her husband had just lost their second car. The transmission had gone out on their minivan, and with 3 kids and a part-time schedule, they couldn't get by with just one vehicle. He said Mom thought I should let Reagan borrow my new car for a few weeks while they figured things out. He said it like it was already decided, like my role in the conversation was just to confirm. I said no. He said, she has kids, you know. I said, I know, I'm their aunt. He hung up. My sister Reagan is 2 years older than me. We grew up in the same house, went to the same schools, sat at the same dinner table every night for 18 years. I love her. I want to be clear about that, because what I'm about to tell you is not a story about hating my family. It's a story about what happens when love gets mistaken for a resource that never runs out. Reagan married her husband Dex when she was 24. He is, by every measure I can think of, a man who has never once been inconvenienced by his own choices. He quit jobs when they bored him. He bought a boat they couldn't afford and sold it 2 years later at a loss. He had a brief phase where he was going to flip houses, and then a phase where he was going to get into cryptocurrency, and then a phase that involved a lot of closed-door phone calls and a new laptop he paid for in cash. I don't know what that last one was about, and I never asked, because some things in this family you just don't pull on. They have 3 kids, 8, 6, and 4. The kids are wonderful. The kids are not the problem. The problem is that Reagan and Dex have spent 11 years making decisions on the assumption that someone else would catch them when they fell. And someone always did. My parents co-signed their first apartment lease. My dad covered 2 months of their mortgage when Dex left a job on principle. My mom watches the kids 3 days a week, unpaid, and buys school supplies every August without being asked. My parents have a 4-bedroom house. 2 of those bedrooms have been functionally reserved for Reagan's family since before the youngest was born. So when I say I'd saved 3 years for something that I then heard was supposed to be handed over for a few weeks, you have to understand what a few weeks means in my family. It means until the next thing breaks. It means indefinitely. It means you should have thought about your sister before you bought something nice for yourself. My mom called the next morning before I'd even had coffee. She opened with, I just want you to think about what it's like to have 3 children depending on you, which is a sentence designed to make me feel like I had somehow caused Reagan's transmission to fail. I listened. I told her I understood the situation was hard. I told her I was not going to lend out a car I'd just purchased, that I needed it to get to work, and that I was happy to help research affordable rental options or look into whether Dex's employer had any emergency assistance programs. She said, this isn't about programs, this is about family. I know, I said, but family doesn't mean I don't get to own things. There was a long pause. Then, I don't know where you learned to be this way. I didn't answer that. I know where I learned it. I learned it from watching what happens to people in this family who give everything away and then wonder why they have nothing left. The group chat started that afternoon. It was our extended family thread. Me, my brother, my parents, 2 aunts, an uncle, a couple of cousins who I'm pretty sure only check it during the holidays. Someone had typed, and I'm quoting directly, praying for Reagan and the babies during this difficult time. One of my aunts responded with a hands clasped emoji. My cousin wrote family first always. Nobody said my name. Nobody had to. I put my phone face down and went back to work. At the hospital, I'm a radiology technician. I take X-rays, CT scans, sometimes assist with more complex imaging. It is not a glamorous job, but it is a good one, and I worked very hard to get my certification, and I take it seriously. I tell you this because I want you to understand that while my family was organizing a prayer circle about a car, I was at a hospital doing actual work. I don't say this to be cold. I say it because I spent a long time feeling guilty about the distance between my life and my sister's, and at some point I had to stop. My dad showed up at my apartment on Thursday. I did not know he was coming. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole and stood there for a moment with my hand on the doorknob, doing that thing where you try to prepare yourself for a conversation that you already know is going to cost you something. He came in, sat down at my kitchen table, and looked around my apartment like he was appraising it. It's a nice apartment. 1 bedroom, good light, on the 3rd floor of a building that has a working elevator and a leasing office that actually answers the phone. I'd moved in 8 months ago and I still wasn't totally over the fact that it was mine. He said, "You know, when your mother and I were your age, we didn't have half of what you have." I said, "I know, Dad." He said, "Reagan needs that car." "I need that car," I said. "I drive 40 minutes to work and back every day. You could take the bus." I looked at him. "Dad, I bought a car. You bought a car while your sister's family is struggling." He said it like those two things were directly related. Like my Toyota had somehow drained Reagan's bank account. I told him I loved Reagan. I told him I would help however I could, financially, with childcare, with researching options, but that I was not going to hand over a vehicle I'd spent 3 years saving for. He said, "What kind of person has this much and won't share with her own family?" And I said, "What kind of family asks her to?" He left without finishing his coffee. Here is what nobody was saying out loud. My parents had 2 working cars. My dad had a Ford F-150 he'd bought 2 years ago that he used mostly to drive to the hardware store and back. My mom had a Subaru that she drove the kids to school in 3 days a week. Between the 2 of them, they had more vehicle capacity than Reagan and Dex actually needed, and a 4-bedroom house with 2 empty rooms. I know that's not my place to point out. It's their property. They can do what they want with it. But I kept coming back to that fact, quietly, every time someone used the word selfish in my direction. 2 weeks after my dad's visit, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman who introduced herself as a family counselor at our church. I'm not particularly devout. I go on Easter and Christmas, mostly to keep peace. But my parents have been going to that congregation for 20 years, and apparently my mom had spoken to someone there about a family conflict involving resources and compassion. The counselor was kind. She was genuinely professionally kind, which somehow made it harder. She said she'd heard I was going through a difficult time and wanted to offer mediation. I asked her what she'd been told. She said she understood that I had recently come into some good fortune, and that my family was hoping I might be willing to share that with my sister during a period of hardship. "Come into some good fortune," I repeated. "A new vehicle," she said. "I bought a car with money I saved over 3 years while working full-time," I said. "That's not good fortune. That's a paycheck." There was a pause. "I see. Has anyone mentioned to you that my parents own 2 cars and a house with extra bedrooms?" Another pause. Longer this time. "No, that wasn't part of what I was told. I want to tell you about the moment things shifted for me, because there was a specific one. It was a Sunday afternoon and I was doing laundry in my building's basement and my phone rang. It was Reagan. We hadn't spoken directly since everything started. It had all been filtered through my parents, through my brother, through a church counselor. And hearing her voice was strange. Like a reminder that somewhere under all of this was an actual sister I used to split a bathroom with. She didn't apologize for any of it. She didn't acknowledge the group chat or the church call or our dad showing up unannounced. She just said, in a voice that was exhausted in a way that I recognized from when we were kids and she'd been crying, "I don't understand why you won't just help us." And I said, "Reagan, I'm not your plan." She was quiet. "I love you," I said. "But I have spent my entire adult life watching everyone in this family treat you and Dex like whatever you need will just appear from somewhere. And I'm the somewhere. I can't keep being the somewhere," she said, So you're punishing me. I'm not punishing you. I'm not participating. She hung up. I sat in the basement next to the dryer for a while. It was warm from the machine running, and I just sat there and let myself feel how tired I was of all of it. What happened next, I did not see coming. A week later, my brother texted me a screenshot. It was from his bank app, showing a charge on a joint account he shared with my dad. A charge for something called Westfield Financial Consulting, $400 from 8 months ago. My brother didn't know what it was. He asked my dad, and my dad got strangely defensive. My brother started looking closer. It turned out that Dex had brought a financial advisor into the family about a year ago. A guy he'd met through someone at his gym. This man had convinced my parents, my aunt, and apparently my brother to invest in a guaranteed return real estate fund that turned out to be, in the most generous interpretation, extremely not a real thing. My parents had put in $15,000. My aunt had put in $8,000. My brother, who had just started his first real job out of college, had put in $2,000 that he absolutely could not afford to lose. Dex had introduced all of them to this man. Dex had vouched for him personally. Whether Dex knew it was a scam, or whether he was just spectacularly irresponsible in a way that devastated people who trusted him, I still don't fully know. Maybe both can be true. My dad called me that night. He sounded like I'd never heard him sound before. Not angry, not performatively disappointed, just small. He said, "I think we made a mistake." I said, "Which one?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I should have listened to you." I didn't say anything for a moment because I didn't trust what would come out of my mouth. I wasn't glad. I want to make sure that's clear. I took no satisfaction in any of this. My family had lost real money. My brother was going to be feeling that for years. There was nothing good about what had happened, but I thought about how many times I'd been told I was being selfish for protecting what I'd built. I thought about my dad sitting at the kitchen table, telling me I could take the bus. I thought about the church counselor who had been told I'd come into good fortune, and I thought about how everyone had trusted Dex without question for 11 years. Because he was family, and because he had 3 kids and an exhausted wife, and because in this family that had always been enough. We got an attorney involved, about a month later, a real one. Not someone Dex found at his gym. A friend of mine from college had a cousin who did financial fraud cases, and she pointed us toward the right people. My brother filed a complaint with the state securities regulator. My aunt did the same. I helped pay for the initial consultation. About $300. I want to include that detail because I think it matters. I wasn't withholding help. I was deciding what kind of help I gave and whether it actually helped. Dex's guy, the advisor, turned out to have done this to other people in other towns. There were other complaints. The investigation is, as of the last update I got, still ongoing. Reagan and Dex did not split up, as far as I know. She called me once, after everything came out, and said she hadn't known. I believe her. That might sound naive, but I know my sister, and I think the truest thing I can say about her is that she trusted Dex in the same way my parents did. Completely. And with her eyes closed, she said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I know," she said, "not just for this, for all of it." We stayed on the phone for a long time after that, not saying very much. That's something we used to do when we were teenagers. Just exist on the phone together, watching the same TV show in different rooms, not really talking. It had been a long time since we'd done it. It felt like something returning to its original shape. My car is still mine. It has 42,000 miles on it now. I have a parking spot with my name on a little sign at the base of it, and every time I walk past that sign I feel something I don't have a word for yet. Not quite pride, not quite relief. Something that lives between the two. My parents lost most of what they put into the fund. They're okay. They have retirement accounts that weren't touched, and my dad still has the F-150. And my mom still has her Subaru, and they still have a 4-bedroom house. It hurt them, and I think it changed something in how they see certain things. My dad doesn't say the word selfish to me anymore. I don't know if he's thought about why. My brother paid off about half his loss over the following year. He's doing all right. He texts me more now than he used to. My sister's kids still call me every few weeks to tell me about things that happened at school. The 8-year-old has decided she wants to be a marine biologist. The 6-year-old lost a tooth and put it under her pillow and got $4 and reported back to me about it very seriously, as though I needed the data. The 4-year-old mostly just breathes into the phone and occasionally says, "Hi," and then breathes some more. I drive 40 minutes to the hospital and 40 minutes back, and I listen to podcasts and I stop for coffee on Tuesdays, and I don't feel guilty about any of it. That took a while. It probably took longer than it should have. But I'm not the somewhere anymore, and I haven't been for a long time. And that is the truest good thing I know how to tell you.